Hello, welcome back. My name is Grimlock. Welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to do a little bit of a continuation of my last video of the deck profile. I'm going to go in a lot more depth about each individual cards, both the cards that I was playing in that profile and cards I decided that aren't really worth playing. And stuff like that. We'll talk about the different variations of the deck itself, different engines you can play, things I think are mandatory, things I think aren't mandatory, stuff like that. So first of all, I'm going to start with generic flip monsters, stuff like the Fire Princess and that weird blue alien dude. Don't play them, don't play any of them, don't play the Morphing Jars unless you're playing a very casual build. If you actually want to take this deck seriously, they're unreliable, they don't achieve anything. It turns your best card into a little gimmick win no more card, which I don't know why you would ever want to do that. So, yeah, let's get into it. So, first of all, we're going into the Maker. So Maker, you can play him as a 2-of. Realistically, you don't need to anymore. On summon, he searches for a monster. He, on your opponent's turn, has a quick effect to pop. Yeah, and also if you have another mimighoul or they have a set monster, he can't be destroyed by battle or card effects, so he sticks around quite a bit, and you have ways to get him back anyway, so he's pretty good. I only run him at 1. I think 1 is entirely the best ratio. Never play him at 3 because he doesn't actually achieve anything by himself other than making Little Knight Masquerade. He's not that good by himself, but with the rest of the board, he is absolutely insane. And he is ultimately your boss monster. It's a bit like Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. You wouldn't play 3 because you don't want to open it and it doesn't do anything by itself, but with the rest of the deck it becomes one of your win conditions. So then moving on to the level 1 flip monsters. So like I said, we go them over one at a time. So Mimighoul Dungeon, when flipped, right-clicks your opponent's board, destroys every one of their monsters that are face up and not mimighoul. So it's pretty good for that. Then on normal summon or special summon, it can add any spell or trap. This is the best monster in the deck by far. This is your 1-card combo, your best starter. This guarantees you a decent amount of interruption as a minimum. So this is always a 3-of. Doesn't matter if you're playing pure, any other engines, even if you're playing Mimighoul as the engine itself, you will always play a 3 because you want to see this, you want to be resolving it, and there are often games where I'm resolving the summon effect 3, 4, 5 times in a game, so it's super important. Next one is Archfiend. Next most important one. Provides so much utility for the deck. Turns brick hands into full combo, stuff like that. On flip summon, your opponent sends a card from hand to grave, and then you draw a card and then you get him back. On normal or special summon, you get to flip a monster face up non-targeting, so that's pretty good. So it means if you open that in any other Mimighoul flip monster, you do have full combo like that. In most versions, at least in all the versions I've played anyway, you can play this at 3. Honestly, this is perfectly fine to play at 2 if you want to. If you're playing it not pure, if you've got multiple engines in, this is a very good card to put down to 2, and it will still be just as good for the deck as a 3. But I just prefer it at 3 because I like the consistency, and I play quite a few in my builds anyway. I like to play a few more Mimighouls than most people do. Then for the extenders, the first one we've got Fairy. So its flip effect is that your opponent can't they can't activate the effects of special summon monsters from the hand, and then none of the rest of them have on summon effects, but it has a condition where if you control a Mimighoul monster, you can summon to your side of the field instead of your opponent's face down. Honestly, I'm going in order of what I think they are from best to worst. So this is the third best one. This honestly, it rivals, if not sometimes overtakes, Archfiend specifically in the Ryziel matchup. If you know they're on Ryziel and you can flip it before they get to any of their names, the they're not activating, especially pure Razio. They really struggle to play through that, because this will never be your only interaction or interruption that you can put up against them. So it's really, really good. Then we're going on to armor. This one is purely just used as an extender. It doesn't really have any utility. Its flip effect is just that Mimighouls can't be destroyed by battle. Can come up. Doesn't really. Most decks will just destroy them by card effect. I guess again against pure Razio, it's kind of funny. But yeah. And then it's conditioned to summon to your side of the field. It's just that your opponent has to have a monster, and well, even if you're going first, you can just give them one. So pretty good for that. Why is this the only common? I don't know. All the rest are super rares. Please, Konami, make my boy shiny. I absolutely love his artwork. But yeah. Slime. Slime's a bit of a controversial one. Sorry, I should have said with the other two, Fairy, I play at 3. If you're not playing Pure, you play at 2. Both Armor you play pretty much always at 1. Slime, if you are going to play it, you are going to play it at 1, or you can just not play it at all. It's very, very optional. I just like him. I think he looks cool. His flip effect is that you get to summon a Mimighoul from deck. In theory, he reads absolutely cracked and amazing. In practice, he doesn't really come up that much, and he's kind of just there as a maker target for when you've already got all the pieces that you need in play. His summoning condition is basically like Pankratops. Your opponent has to have specifically more monsters than you, not just a monster. So, but I do like him. I think he does come up. He does have his uses that makes him worth running, at least in Pure. The final monster is Cerberus. As of the current moment, during Malice format, you should never ever be playing him. He has his utilities very lacking. Maybe if you play 1-for-1, you could play him as a 1-of against Razio to protect your field spells, because it says that they can't be targeted by your opponent's card effects, or with any card effects rather. By your opponent's card effects. His flip effect is banish the top 3 cards of your deck. Your opponent then has to summon one of their banished monsters to your field. Depending on the deck, it can be alright, but especially against Malice, you do that, and in the next set they're getting extra names. The odds of you hitting a name, or even multiple names, is so high he's not even worth considering. He was the worst in the first wave, and I'd say even with the second wave coming out, he has the least utility. The funniest thing I've done off this is flip him. Someone banished 2 spells and a Fenrir, so I got a free Fenrir. So yeah, he's okay. It's not the format for him. He's also not an extender either, because he was in the first wave. So I generally just don't think he's actually worth playing. On to the spells. So we have the field spell, the bread and butter, along with this is how you get into your grind game. This is how you stop your opponent just flipping your monsters and then killing you with their own. Once per turn, not an activation, once per turn, it can add from grave or deck to your hand any Mimighoul monster. So it searches for a card, but it also is recursion as well. It also makes it so your Mimighoul monsters on the turn except the one that they're summoned. Every turn except the one that they're summoned, they gain attack equal to their own defense. And it also makes it so if either player has a face down monster, they can't normal summon or attack with special summon monsters on the turn that they're summoned. Absolutely crazy, absolutely bonkers. I finally managed to get 1 copy in Quarter Century. Do not know where the rest of them are. Someone's hiding them, someone's stashing them all. What can you do? But yeah, absolutely amazing. Definitely a 3-of. Again, no matter what build you're doing. This is full combo, Dragon's full combo. The next card I'm going to show you is Maker. This is also full combo. So you reveal 2 flip monsters. Like I said earlier, you can't technically pick any flip monsters. It doesn't have to be Mimighouls. Why would you ever do that? It just feels really bad. This can be full combo by itself. Why would you limit it to a 50-50 gimmick? So yeah, So you reveal 2, your opponent gets 1 face down, you get 1 added to your hand, and then you get to special summon a mimighoul from your hand. So it's really good. You don't have to special summon the one you've added either. Then you can banish it from your graveyard when your opponent special summons, except the same turn that you activate it, to non-targets. Sorry, no, this one does target. It flips your target monster your opponent controls, flip it face up. So really, really good in pretty much every build now. You play it as a 3 of. It used to be a 2 of, because it used to be 50-50 that it would do nothing, but now it's 100% guaranteed that if this is the first card you control and you don't get hand trapped, this will lead to you having full combo regardless of the outcome. We then have the trap here, Mimighoul Room. This card you can play basically any ratio other than 0. You do have to play it. You can play it at 1, you can play it at 2, you can play it at 3. Personally, I like it at 2. I think 3 is a bit too cloggy. However, it's one of those cards where it doesn't really matter if you draw it or not. If you do draw it, it's absolutely fine because it's still an interruption and it does eventually get you into full combo. So there have been games where I've just had to set this and pass. So what it does is it summons a Mimighoul from your deck deck or hand to either field, face up if it's yours, face down if it's your opponent's, and then can non-targeting set a monster face down. So it's really, really good. Even if your opponent does absolutely nothing, you just activate this in their end phase, get yourself a Mimighoul Dragon, that grabs a spell, combo off. Go, good. And then you can banish it from your grave as a quick effect, target any number of face-up Mimighouls that you have. Doesn't matter and that's cards, not monsters. And you can return them to the hand. Really, really good if someone's trying to Cosmic Cyclone your field spell. Moving on, we have the ones that we don't play. One that you could arguably play, maybe, not really, is Fork. So you target a face-down monster your opponent controls, and then they get to pick what happens to it. They can either flip it face up, or they can send it to the graveyard, and whoever's graveyard it goes to, that person draws 2 cards. It reads okay, but then it can also banish itself from the graveyard to grab another copy. And like the issue with this is, it's 50-50 if you give them a one with a bad effect. Well, I say bad effect. The mediocre effect, so the ones from Wave 2, other than Slime. So if you give them Fairy, you give them Cerberus, or you give them Armour, they're just going to flip it face up and not really be bothered by anything, because this is only on your turn. If it's one of the good ones, they're just sent to the graveyard. Yeah, you get to draw 2, but you lost out on that really important body and potentially game-changing flip effect. Pardon me. But yeah, and then the issue is again is if you are going to play it, you have to play it at least at 2 to maximise the efficiency of it. So that's why I think it's not worth it. And then the other one, I can't even show you because it's not worth it. I didn't even bother buying it. What it is Charm. So I will actually have to read what it does here. It's a continuous spell, and it is once per chain during the main phase of a Mimighoul monster your opponent controls is flipped face up. You can randomly choose a card in their extra deck. If it can be summoned, summon it. If it can't, does it get banished? But yes, it gets banished, and you can do that twice per turn. It's such a win more gimmicky card. Like, it just doesn't actually achieve anything. Like, you could play it as a one-off to search, but it's kind of like, it's the worst of them all. So it's your 5th target in a deck that can sometimes only search 1, maybe 2 spell or traps per turn. So it's not really worth even considering. And again, I think it's a purely just casual bait, because the artwork is quite nice, but it's honestly just a complete waste of time to go over anything with it. Really, there's no build that should ever be playing it if it wants to be the most competitive that it can be. So that's for the main deck cards, for the Mimighouls rather. So we're going to move on to the extra deck ones. So we've got Giant Mimighoul. absolutely insane boss monster that fixed all the issues that the deck had with Wave 1, which is you give your opponent all these set monsters, and then how'd you go for game? How'd you go for game? Well, this gives you two ways to go for game. The first one is your non-XE mimighouls can attack directly. So it doesn't matter. Well, that is while they have a set monster, that is. So that's absolutely insane. But on summon, it searches for any mimighoul card, any monster, spell, trap, doesn't care. It searches for that. And then its third effect is you can detach a material, target any number of face-up cards on the field up to the number of face-down monsters your opponent controls, destroy them, and burn them for 1,000 for each. So both of those, that and the attack directly effect, just make going for game surprisingly easy in a deck full of level 1 monsters with barely any attack, as long as you have the field spell out. But like I said, I can target any face-up cards in the field, including your own. If you get your opponent down to 3,000, they have 3 set monsters and nothing else on their field, you can blow up your entire board and win off that. So, very, very effective that way. So you play this probably as a 2-of. If you really want, you can play it as a 3-of, but I think 2-of is a perfect ratio for that. The other extra deck monster is Mimighoul Throne. This is an interesting one. You can play this at either 1 or 2. Both ratios, again, absolutely fine. That's one of the beautiful parts of the deck. One of the things that make it one of my favourite decks ever is its versatility, how almost no card has a set ratio you have to play, if you even have to play it at all. So it has 2 effects, and you can only use one of them per turn. You can detach a material, summon a Mimighoul Master from anywhere except for banishment. And then as a quick effect, during the main phase, you can equip it to the master that you summoned to give it 1,000 attack and bounce face-up cards on the field. I think, no, it's not face-up, rather, it's just cards on the field up to the number of materials that it has, which usually is 1. Sometimes you do it where you have 2 instead. But yeah, get your master with the field spell up to 4,000 attack, and if you have giant out, you can attack directly. So it's absolutely insane. And I personally play 1 just because if you really, really need to get to your second one, you can just put this back with a field spell. So moving on now to the more generic stuff, the engines and stuff like that. One that I do think, at least in this current format, is mandatory is Magnamut. With all the Fiendsmith stuff going about, you kind of have to have this. It's also weirdly good against Malice, because you can force their banishes a bit earlier than they like. You can force awkward banishes, and if they try to bestial, you can just counter it with your own, so you get a body and they only get the banish for it. Magnamut, I think, even, I don't know, as long as there is a light or dark deck even remotely viable, you should be playing it, even if you don't want to play any of the other bestials, because it adds any dragon. And what happens to be a dragon? Well, very cleverly named Mimighoul Dragon. Yeah, absolutely amazing card. Definitely should be playing this in any format that you can, and probably get a Druid Swarm as well. I normally play 1 and 2 with the ratios with that. Moving on now to one of the engines that you can play. So we're going to be starting with Kashtira. So the main one you want to be playing is Unicorn, because you can get its effect to trigger every single turn, because the Mimighouls being flipped and using their flip effects are considered your opponent activating their effect. You get so much knowledge of their extra deck. You know what tech cards they're playing in there. You know exactly what cards both to hit straight away and on the further turns. Because if this gets on the field and doesn't get wiped out straight away, you are at least taking out 2 of their extra deck cards very, very easily. So absolutely amazing card. Also, it's a bit of a big beater as well, which if you don't have access to the field spell, this deck does lack quite a bit. Then to go along with it, we're playing Birth. Birth basically just gives you a bit of a grind game. It means if they can't permanently out your Unicorn, if they can only destroy it or send it a grave, you can just keep bringing it back every single turn. And because the other effect to banish 3 cards from grave banishes them face down. It does give you utility against Malice. It also is pretty decent against Raziel as well, because you can get rid of the Eclipse Twins, stuff like that. So this is definitely a one-off that you should be playing if you do go for that. So normally I play 3 Unicorn and 1 Bath. You can change the ratios up slightly. You can play a bigger engine, or you can play a slightly different version, so you can cut one of them for a Fenrir. I think regardless, you only play 1 Fenrir if you're playing any at all. It's just a nice little utility. Doesn't quite have the kick in this format that it used to do, just because it can't deal with Detonator. It gets rid of it once, yeah, but okay. It's a good body to get rid of with Detonator regardless. This doesn't just deal with a problem, it just puts a problem that they can easily deal with themselves. So he's okay, it's pretty nice. And then if you are playing more, I'd say at most you should only ever be playing 5 Kashtira monsters. But you might as well put in 1 to 2 copies of Wraiths off. So it's pretty nice, kind of boosts all your monsters up as well. It gives you various different attributes to work with. So that's it for the Kashtira stuff. I do think that's probably one of, if not the best engine to put in with the deck. I think it just synergizes so perfectly well, especially Unicorn, that I've played it with and I've played it without. I think going forward, I didn't play it in my last list that I went undefeated with, but I feel like going forward, I'm just going to boost the deck count up to 43, 44, and just play it that way. The other engine is Engraver. I just have the Engraver to cover the entire Fiendsmith engine, because at this point everyone knows exactly what it is. In this deck, it's you often have dead bodies left over depending on the combo that you're doing. Giant mimighoul doesn't actually do anything on your opponent's turn, so you can very easily, if you're going to play it, you can just go into Masquerena or Little Knight, or you can go into the Fiendsmith engine instead. So I do think you can play little as possible. You can play as little as just this one Engraver. You can go all the way up to the full engine. Both pretty good. There's a couple of unintentional synergies. Luri's a level 1, so you can use it for rank 1 players and stuff like that. So those are the 2 main engines that you would play. I'm not quite sure if there's any others. I haven't really looked at any of them. I do think those are the 2 best versions. But the 3 best versions are Pure, Kashtira, and Fiendsmith. But then a couple of other main deck cards I do want to talk about was noticeable. Obviously your tech cards, your engine, your non-engine, like your board breakers and hand traps, they're entirely format dependent. I do believe, however, you need to be playing both triple tactics. So with thrust and talents and thrust, this deck can make both of them live turn 1. This is one of the only decks in the game where you can add to hand turn 1 with thrust. The targets you have for thrust are amazing. The hand reveal that you can get from talents is amazing. I just think there's no situation. I'm personally playing these at 3 each. You could easily cut them at 2 each. You could play 1 and 2, 2 and 2, 1 and 3, any sort of ratio like that. Whatever you feel is best. I just think they're so powerful and such game-changing cards that I'd like to see them as much as possible. Then for the extra ones, there are a couple that I think, again, you've only got three to 4, 5 mimighoul extra deck cards. So you've got so much room to play with, and if you're not playing the Fiendsmith, stuff like that, the Kashtira engine doesn't have any extra deck, so you have plenty of room. One card that I do feel is mandatory to play though, or one of 3 cards rather, is Ripplebird. So you play Ripplebird, or you can play the embodiment of, I think it's Crime and Punishment, or Pain and Punishment, whatever they're called, those rank 1s. The reason I think that Ripplebird is a little bit better is you can choose which of them you're flipping up. Sometimes you have set your opponent's boss monster, and you don't want that flipping back up. You don't want to have its interaction available again. So this can specifically target. Also, the 500 attack boost for everything is really, really nice. And if you are really desperate and in a pinch, you can put everything in defense and your opponent can't declare an attack. So I think overall it is better. It's also a Windwing beast, which means if you are playing it, you can play, it does allow you to play Harpy's Featherstorm. So the only link I think is mandatory is Anima. I think this card is absolutely insane. I'm tempted to play 2 if I can find the space for it. Just the utility that it has. At worst case scenario, you can give them a mimighoul, steal it back, stuff like that. But the utility that this card provides for the deck is absolutely insane, and it's one of the most common cards that I'll go into outside of Ripplebird, Zeus, or the actual mimighoul cards. And then this is possibly the only deck where I feel like you not only have to, but can very easily play a Typhon. I don't like this card, I'm going to be honest. I don't like playing it. I feel like it's a necessary evil with the cards that are in the current format. With against Malice, getting to them with Nightmare Griffin on the board and getting to a big enough body with just normal summons isn't possible. And it's a link monster, so you can't even use the trap to set face down, so you just have to go on Typhon. And like obviously everyone knows that this just outs the entire pure Rizio board. Just bounce back one, beat over the other, and you're good to go. But you can also just slap this on top of anything, put the trap card face down, activate the field spell, and you're in a really, really good spot there. So that's all the main cards I wanted to talk about. There are, I imagine, a few tech cards that a lot of people use, but yeah, it's kind of whatever. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you a basic combo with the deck and the various different lines and stuff that you would take depending on what your maker results are. So I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, and we're back again. So this is the little combo section. We're going to be going over a couple of the basic combos, and then after that we'll be going over a test hand or two, just to show that the deck is very flexible in the lines that it can do. So the most basic combo that you have is with Maker. So you'll activate it and you'll reveal both Dragon and Archfiend. Like I said before, it doesn't matter which one of these you end up getting, both of them end in full combo. So for the first combo, what we're going to do is we're going to show what happens if you end up with Dragon. So you'll summon Maker to your opponent's side of the field, add this to hand. It's very, very important, especially in high tier events, that you do not send this to graveyard until you've summoned the Dragon. A lot of people will call you out on that, and it does mean that you have fully resolved the card, so you won't be able to do it. So I'm going to activate, summon the Dragon, then that goes to grave. Make sure you do that every time, regardless, as long as you are intending to special summon. We'll then activate the Dragon effect. The Dragon will get us our field spell. We'll activate that straight away. Use its effect to search for Mimighoul Fairy. One moment. Sorry about that. Well, what's that? Yes, you'll activate your fairy. You'll summon your fairy, and then you'll overlay into your giant Mimighoul. Use its effect on summon. You can get various different things, but if you just wanted to go very, very simple, you can just go into room. Then you'll set your room, and you're done. And you're probably looking at this thinking, that's a terrible board. What does this actually achieve? What does this do? Well, on your opponent's turn, because of the field spell, this will go up to 3,300, so it's quite a big beater, which a lot of decks will struggle just to beat over that if they don't have any other outs. Before they can even fully start their turn, a lot of decks in the format right now require their normal summon, so they will have to flip up the Archfiend, so it will return to you. They will then lose a card in hand. They'll go down to 5, and then you'll gain another one, so you'll be up to 5. So you've basically just went +3 in card advantage. They've lost a card, you've drew a card, but you've also gained an Archfiend. Yeah, and this will go to 1,900 again because of the field spell there. If you know that they're playing a deck that requires their normal summon to play, at this point I would immediately activate Room, giving them whatever you really want. probably your best bet would be to give them a second copy of Dragon face down. So if they do somehow manage to play with an extender, you can do that, flip this face up, pop their, like, wipe their entire board if you know it's a choke point in their combo. So very, very simple. And then obviously on your turn you can then use the dungeon to get a card. You've got these in hand. This, if you really wanted to, you could bounce the Archfiend if they've got a normal summon again to flip a card face up. But yeah. So what we're going to do now is we're going to rewind a bit. Well, I say a bit, right back to the beginning of that combo, and I'm going to show you what the difference is if you get the Archfiend instead. Okay, so this next combo, it starts with exactly the same card, so you'll have Maker plus 4 other cards in hand, and it still gets you a pretty strong end board. In fact, arguably, you get an even better end board here. So what you'll do is you'll reveal your 2, and obviously, like I said, this time we're going to be doing it with, we get Archfiend instead, so we'll set that there, we'll add Archfiend to hand, special summon it, again remembering to summon it before you send Maker to the grave. We'll then activate Archfiend effect, which will flip this face up, and even though there are no monsters that would be able to be destroyed, it still is mandatory to activate, so it will still come back to us. Then what we will do is we will overlay into our mimighoul dungeon here. We will then use its effect to search the field spell, and we'll activate the field spell, and this time we will grab a second copy of Dragon. We haven't used our normal summon yet, so we will normal the Dragon, use its effect to search for a copy of Room. Now at this point, in the other combo, what you do is you end with an extra body on your opponent's side. Not as lucky this time, not with this combo anyway, but instead what you can do is you can link these two off. Now there are various different options that you can go with. You can go with Silhouette Rabbit, you can go with Little Knight, or you can go with Masquerena. Personally, I like to go with Silhouette Rabbit. With Rizio, there's a lot. They have the aggregator. There's a lot of cards that can very easily out these imperms. Some people playing Chalice. There's Ultimate Slayer. That's why I prefer at the moment to go into the Silhouette Rabbit. So we will link into that. Its effect will then activate, and it will get you the Azure Rune statue. So slightly different combo. They're not under the lock initially, but means you can use this a bit more reactively. You don't have to use it as proactively as you did beforehand, and you don't get the draw. But what you still do have is an E-Telly plus Book of Moon, and a Solemn Warning essentially. They try to special summon on, so you tribute this. What you also get is an MST as well, because when a trap monster is summoned, the Silhouette Rabbit targets a spell or trap on the field and destroys it. So that's really, really good. So what we're going to do now, like I said, the combos, they're not super in-depth, but they are very flexible, and the more cards you have, the more stuff you can do. You also got your hand traps as well, so you have to remember this was all done off the back of one card. So we'll do a couple of test stands, and we'll see how that goes. Okay, so we're getting nice and shuffled up. So the version I am playing now is basically the exact same as the deck profile that I did. The main differences is that I've added 3 copies of Unicorn and a copy of Birth, and I've also swapped out the Baoqiu for what's it called? For the Ray Lancer. I just think its utility is really nice, and it comes up a lot more often than a Baoqiu does. So let's see what our test hands are. So we got Maker, always nice. Maker, always nice. Jerusalem, nice interruption. Room for follow-up. Not follow-up, if we play through interruption, and Unicorn. So, yeah. Overall, I'd say this is a pretty good hand. So what we do here is we start with the Unicorn. Obviously, we need to have no monsters on the field, and we'll use its effect to search. Getting our... Where's it gone? Getting our copy of Birth. We'll then, just for the sake of it, activate the Birth, and then we will activate Maker. So, just like I did in the combo video, 1 Archfiend and 1 Dragon. So, do I have a dice? I do have a dice. Let me just grab it. There we go. So we'll do 1, 2, 3. We get to add the Archfiend to hand. 4. So we get the Dragon in this case. So that gets set to their field. And we get to add and summon our Dragon. Dragon effect will activate. It will get us a copy of the field spell, which we will then, again, activate there. We'll then use its effect to get a fairy, and then we'll summon the fairy because we control the mimighoul, overlay into giant mimighoul, and in this case we already have room and even a second copy of Maker, so that's actually quite strong. So here you can get literally anything that you want. No point getting another fairy, but it's entirely up to you. You can for the next turn. I'm just going to get a slime, so if they do flip up my monster, the slime, I'll then be able to get mimighoul master. So I'll then give that to them. And then we've got 2 bodies here, so we'll move that out the way. So we'll link summon into a silhouette rabbit and use its effect on summon. Going into, where's that? Right at the top of the deck, as usual, Azrin statue. Then obviously that will get set. We'll then set the room, if I just keep these face up just for the sake of it, and then we would activate the Birth, summoning back Kashtira Unicorn there. So we still have the 2 cards in hand here. This was already in hand, so off of basically a 2-card combo, we've got this board set up absolutely insane. I've got Unicorn for to look at the extra deck. We can summon Druid Swarm by banishing a light or a dark from their graveyard. We have follow up with this, a summon negate, E-Telly plus E-Telly plus Book of Moon. If they do flip this up, we get them back, and it lets us summon a... We can summon either a dragon, or we can summon, if he doesn't disappear on me, a mimighoul master, which will then get us another copy of the dragon. And then obviously they still can't normal summon yet, so they will have to flip up the other monster. So this is in hand. They'll have to flip that up, give it to us. They'll lose a card. We'll draw another one. In this case, it's Salesman. So yeah, it's pretty good I'd say. So I'm gonna pause again, and we'll do one more test stand. If it ends up being better or worse than the last one. If it ends up being exactly the same end board, I'd probably just skip to one final combo that I do want to show off. Okay, so we're back for the second test hand. So let's see what we've got. So we've got Thrust, Impalm, Mimighoul Dungeon, Ash Blossom, and a second Ash Blossom. So to be honest, this hand may look a bit mediocre. It's not the greatest, no, I'm not afraid to admit that, but it can still do a fair amount. So obviously we're going to have to start with our field spell here. Then we'll activate if it gets ashed or augured or ghost belled, which unfortunately loses all 3 of them. Not to worry, we can simply activate thrust here, grab ourselves a copy of room, and pass turn. Oh well, obviously set imperm, pass turn, and that's still a decent amount of interruptions. We've still got Ash Blossom, we've still got the imperm, and we've still got the room. But what if they don't have the interruption? What if they open no hand traps whatsoever? Before people go, oh, that's not realistic. I disagree. I don't know. I think obviously you have to accept that sometimes they will have hand traps, but to say that there's never an opportunity where they don't, I think it's just wrong. So we'll do that as if they've not got it. So we'll get ourselves our dragon. So we'll go normal summon our dragon here, use its effect, we'll get us Maker. But here, obviously, you're probably looking at this and being like, well, Maker's supposed to summon dragon. What's the point? If we get dragon, it doesn't do anything. And you're right, to an extent. I mean, you still get 2 bodies, which gets you extension, but we'll do it anyway. So in this specific case, you'll reveal still on the Archfiend, because having the ability to flip is nice. But this is where I believe we see the true power, or potentially the true power of slime. So just like before, we'll do 1, 2, 3. We get mimighoul Archfiend. So 6. You saw the dice roll yourselves. So we unfortunately get the slime, and that gets set. And then we'll just, for the sake of it, we'll just summon the slime because we have already normal summoned. Again, not much explosive goes off here, but I will show you what happens. So, to be honest, I'm actually not. Because this is just overlay to the XE, get the trap card. However, let's say we got the other way around, so they get the slime. So we'll summon the Archfiend, that will flip face up, come back to us, and it will get us our copy of the Master, wherever he's hiding away. He loves to hide away in my deck. You'd think he'd stand out given that he's quarter century, but no. That will then search us a copy of Fairy here, and then we can go summon Fairy, overlay any 2 of them, doesn't really matter, into your Giant Mimighoul. Giant Mimighoul here will get you a copy of the trap card. Got our room. And then what we're going to do is, thinking here, we can turn these 2 into our Silverhat Rabbit, get our copy of the trap, the Azure Rune. Then we can turn our final 2 into Thrawn, and we can Thrawn effect, detach, summon back the Master here, and end on a pretty insane part. If you really wanted to, you could link these off into Masquerena, but I don't think that's necessary. Plus, it's kind of a easier interruption, easier way to play through interruption. So yeah. So with this end board, with them having no hand traps, we have a non-targeting bounce, a summon negate, E-Telly plus Book of Moon, Imperm, and Ash Blossom. Only downside is we don't get a card in their field. So yeah. So now I'm going to stop and I'm going to take you back to one final combo. Okay, so I decided to not go with a combo. When I thought about it, it was basically similar to what we had already done anyway. Just a bit worse, which was basically if you open with Dragon, you end on a very similar board to if you open the field spell or if you open Maker and get Dragon. The only difference is you have to use your normal summon, stuff like that. So instead, what I'm going to do is a very, very quick deck profile over my deck that I'm more than likely going to be taking to an OTS championship in in 3 days time. So yeah, so just one maker. Actually, we'll bring this down so you can actually see the cards a bit better. There we go. So we got our one maker, 3 dragon, 3 archfiend. We've got 3 fairy. Set of these. 1 armor, 1 slime. Mimighoul spells. 3 dragon with a terraforming. 3 maker. 2 room. We then have the Azurin statue as well. Then, to go along with that, I did decide to play the Kashtira stuff, so we have 1 unicorn and 1 birth. Not playing Fiendsmith, anything like that. So, for going second, well, I guess also for going first in this deck specifically, we have talents, 2 tactics, 2 talents, 2 thrust, 3 thrust rather. Then I go with that Call by the Grave, and then one card that I am trying out, went quite well when I did it at locals last week, is Sales Ban. Quite an interesting card, but I mean, yeah, basically it's like Prohibition. You call a card name, this turn your opponent can't use that, the rest of the duel you can't use that card. And the hand traps. Ash Nib, I do know this doesn't really play nice with the Kashtira cards. Neither do the Bestials, but there are cards in our extra deck that make up for that. And then also Impalm. So that I believe is 45 cards total. If you wanted to make it an even 40, I'd cut out one of the thrusts and the Kashtira engine, or you can also just get rid of hand traps, really. You can maybe even get rid of 1 or 2 copies of the fairy, but this is the build that I'm going with. For extra deck, Giant Mimighoul and 1 Throne. Don't need to play more than that. Ripple Bird as well. Honorary Mimighoul. Honestly, as you'll know through this video, I can't help but sing its praise. It's a good card. Zeus Line. Nightingale. I think it has more utility than the other bird, the one that's unaffected. I think it's just a bit better. This only removes 1 material to make itself not be able to be destroyed by battle. It also doesn't. You also don't take battle damage either. Downward and Zeus, obviously. Then, as I was going over just a moment ago, the Full Armored Lancer and the Typhon. So those are our XZs. I prefer to play Lynx over more generic and other rank 1 monsters. I mean, rank 1s aren't the most amazing anyway, but Link 1's just for a few, because D-Barry is quite popular. 1 Anima, the only Link 1. A card that gets monsters off the field so that you can play Kashtira cards is Haggard Lizardos. Obviously, if you've seen Malice, you know that they play this card. Banish a card from field or grave with 2000 loss attack, make a monster on the field become that attack. So you can make an opponent's monster become 800 but by banishing himself, and then because he is a reptile, you get to draw a card. Other Link 2s, I've already went over in the combos, Masquerena, Little Knight, and Rabbit, and then the Link 5 that we play is Underworld Goddess. This deck can very easily spam out cards, so it's quite a nice card. It's also good for Metal Tronus in the side deck, which I will go over now. So yeah, Metal Tronus, a lot of targets in this deck. The Bestials are one. Underworld Goddess is stuff like that. There's plenty of overlap with stuff like that. Shifter for everything not pure Ryziel or Malice. Then we have for Malice specifically, because that deck just does unfair things, so in return we have to do unfair things back to it. It's got Lancia and then Phantasmas to draw into the Lancia. And then the last 3 cards are thrust targets, so D-Barrier. This for going first into Malice, and then Featherstorm for when you you can't allow your opponent to play, because they will. If you're in a really, really bad matchup, you make this. You make either the Lyrilisk or the Ripple Bird, and then you're good to go. So this has been quite a long video. I do hope that you guys have enjoyed it. I hope it's been informative. If you have any other deck techs or tips or anything about that, about the deck, feel free to leave it in the comments. If I ever make an updated video, stuff like that, I'll give you a shout out, stuff like that. But most importantly, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Helps me with the algorithm, gets me a few more views, makes me very happy. I love the serotonin of seeing that +1 every time someone subscribes. But yeah, it also motivates me to make more videos. So that's it for the video. I hope you've managed to come along this entire journey with me, and goodbye.